What's up guys? Today I'm gonna tell you a story about how I made $100,000 in passive income from a website that I built in 6 weeks in evenings while I was a student. A website that's had over 50 million visitors since its launch, and at its peak had over 100,000 daily visits. And let's take a look at that right away in Google Analytics. Now the dips that you see here coming frequently are just basically weekends because the website didn't draw as many visitors during the weekends, but still it's in the tens of thousands on those days as well. In this video, I want to make sure to cover everything. So the first part that I'm going to tell you is about how I got the idea. The second part is how I built the website. The third part is the SEO optimization that I did on the website. And the fourth part is going to be about what I think that you can learn from this story. Because even though the website I built is unique in itself, the methodology that I use here is actually teachable. And I know that because I taught my friend Nicola this principle that I learned, kind of like our secret sauce. And he's made over 100K in Google AdSense money himself. And we're gonna have a separate video in the future as well, talking about how, what kind of websites Nicola built as well. So stick around for that as well. Before we move on, if this is the kind of information that generally interests you, then please subscribe to my YouTube channel called Business Bits. This is the kind of videos that we upload there. And if you're watching this on LinkedIn, I'll make sure to write in the comment section down below a link to our channel. So click on that and please subscribe. The story starts in 2008 when a guy named Linus Stockenberg showed up at our college campus in Gothenburg at Chalmers. And he put up an ad that he was looking for a PHP developer at that time. And I had been doing PHP on the side of school because I was already on this quest of, making these passive income generating websites myself. And on the ad that Linus was putting up, I looked at it and it said the compensation was 400 crowns per hour. And that's about 40 euros per hour, give or take. And for me as a college student or any college student, you know how it is, 40 euros per hour. He might as well have said 1,000 euros per hour. So I told him, Linus, you don't even have to put that up. I'll help you with that. His website was synonymer.se. And if you're from Sweden, you know about this website for sure because it has over 300,000 daily visitors in Sweden alone. And it's the simplest of services. It's a service where you basically go to a website, you enter a word, and the website gives you all the synonyms for that specific word. As easy as that. The whole reason I'm telling you this story is because when I was working for Linus, I learned one crucial lesson. And that is, I asked Linus, okay, how much of your traffic is coming from Google search and how much is direct traffic? Direct traffic means that you actually explicitly wrote synonymer.se into the URL browser and came to the website like that. And he said to me, Senad, it's almost all organic, but we have a very long tail. And I figured, what does long tail even mean? So I Googled it a little bit and I found out that, for example, if you go to google.com and you enter site, and then any URL, like for example, synonymer.se, you will get hundreds of thousands of results. All the results you see there are results for this specific website. That means that synonymer.se consists of one landing page and hundreds of thousands of subpages. And each subpage is basically the results for when you search for one specific word. This means that if somebody searches for synonyms for hello, they rank first. If somebody searches for synonyms for goodbye, they rank first. And that's basically true for every single word in the Swedish dictionary. And that means that if you have hundreds of thousands of pages that are indexed, if each of them just has one visitors every year, that would also mean that you have hundreds of thousands of visits every year. To me, that was a mind-blowing realization. But the whole thing that I understood in this is to create a long tail website like they did, you need a large database like they had with their lexicon. I needed to come up with something myself. How could I get my hands on something like this? Now, there's no standard answer to this, but I'm going to tell you what I did and maybe that'll trigger some ideas for you as well. So this was my idea. I knew that there wasn't any service in Sweden where you could enter a word and get example sentences for how to use that word in sentences. And I knew that this could be very useful for anybody that's doing any kind of writing essentially. I also remembered that when my family and I came to Sweden in '93, we came as refugees. Naturally, my brother and I picked up the language much faster than our parents did. And I remember that when I was a kid, my dad would always ask me, what's this word? And when I would say what it is, he would say, okay, how can I use it in a sentence? And I would describe that for him. And I knew that he couldn't be alone in that. So the next question was, okay, how can I build this? And I knew that I for sure wasn't gonna write hundreds of thousands of sentences into a database, right? So what I did instead was that I downloaded hundreds of Swedish ebooks in EPUB format, and then I downloaded a software that could convert EPUB format into .txt format. And then I wrote a PHP script that took all those TXT files one by one and split them up by the dots, right? Because the dots are essentially telling me that this is one sentence. And then I stored those sentences in a database in one table, and in another table I stored all the words. And I made a connection between the words and the sentences. So essentially for every word that I searched, I could find all the sentences that contained it. And then I created a super simple website where it just had one field where you could enter your word, and when you search for that words, it goes into my database looking for that specific word, and it retrieves all the sentences with that specific word, and that was the website. And you can see the website that I built if you go to exempelmeningar.se. We'll write that out here somewhere on the video. The next step after I created the website was to SEO optimize the website, and that's going to be the next part in this video. And SEO was kind of like the steroids to my website, so I probably would have gotten traffic either way, but with good SEO I knew that that would take it to the next level. And if you don't know anything about SEO, I created a video before. It's called 12 years of experience in under 5 minutes in SEO. Please watch that video first so you have a hunch about what SEO is really all about. So anyways, for any website that you create, there are two types of SEO that you can do. You have your on-site SEO and your off-site SEO. Off-site SEO is always the harder part because it's primarily answering the question, how are we going to get links to our website? And that's unique for every website, and it's very hard. The easier part is the on-site SEO, and we're going to start talking about that, and then we'll come back to the off-site SEO. The first important thing that I did was that I bought a URL that actually contains some of the keywords that I'm trying to rank for. So exempelmeningar in Swedish essentially means example sentences. So I had a URL that was both descriptive, which is important, but also actually contained some of the keywords that I'm trying to rank for. The on-site SEO was pretty simple. I just figured, okay, how are people going to search to end up on my website? And I figured there are two ways. Either they're going to write the word and then followed by example sentences, or they're going to write the word followed by use in a sentence. Those are the two variants that I needed to keep in mind. So to be able to rank for both of those variants, I made sure that I had one of those variants in my title tag, and I had some other variants in my H1 and H2 tags. Those are essentially the tags that are the most important as far as containing the keywords that you're actually trying to rank for. Then I also did a lot of work to try to optimize the speed of my website, but that's a long story in itself, and I'll keep that for a separate video. And quite honestly, it's not as important as these other parts. Now the next part was the really hard one, and that was how to get links to my website. And I'm actually really proud of this strategy that I had. So I thought, okay, who links to dictionaries? And I knew that synonymer.se, which is my old client, and tyda.se at that point were the two biggest dictionaries in Sweden. Everybody was using them. And I needed to find out, okay, who links to them? Now, you can get that information by using one of several SEO tools. In my case, I used ahrefs.com, and they have a feature where you can basically just enter any website and find out information about all the other websites that are linking to them. So I used that service to find out who was linking to synonymer.se and tyda.se, and then I, through their server, just exported that into a CSV file to have that to move forward with it. Then I imported all those websites into a database, and I created a small application that I would use to decide if I needed to reach out to them or not. And I had a small checkbox to the right, which was essentially the decider if I should be reaching out to them. Now, the last thing that I wanted to do was just to spam random people through this. So what I decided was that, okay, through this application that I built, I'm going to list all of the websites to the left side, and then I'm going to click on each of them to actually see if that website is relevant as far as linking to us. If it was, I would check the checkbox at the right hand side to say that it is relevant for us. And then I would also try to find the name of the person on the website who's the owner of it, so that I could alter the email that was sent to them so that it's much more personal. And then in my email, I went on and described to them why I thought that this would be a good tool for students or anybody doing any kind of writing. Basically telling them what I've told you guys in this video, and I also told them the story about how we came to Sweden as refugees and that my parents could have used this service when they were younger themselves. Keep in mind that the refugee point was very relevant at this point in time, because Sweden was just opening its border to hundreds of thousands of Syrians and other refugees that were coming from war-torn countries. So the idea that we needed to integrate them into the Swedish society was very relevant at this point. People responded extremely well to my website, and I got a ton of new links, and even strong brands and websites like my own college started linking to me. And that was it as far as development went. After that, I just basically watched the traffic increase week by week, and I could see, it was just growing, and it kind of had its peak at around 6,000 to 7,000 unique visitors every day. And I gotta tell you, I was ecstatic that this was a hit, but this was just the beginning. There's a famous entrepreneurial book called Nail It Then Scale It. And with that in mind, I knew that I had to take this website on a bigger scale. And for me, it became natural that I needed to create this website for the bigger market. So the languages, English, German, and Spanish, and so on. The same concept applied, but these were the bigger markets. So I created Foboco.com, the exact same concept, but for the bigger languages. Now on this website, this is where I got it to the next level basically. Now Foboco.com could have over 100,000 daily visitors at its peak. And I just put up some basic Google AdSense ads on that website, and I would get checks every month from Google, just basically giving me passive income. And at its peak, I was making about $5,000 per month just from this one website. So since I started my Google AdSense journey, if you will, I've made over $200,000 in total, of which $100,000 plus has been just from this one website. And the beauty with this is that I'm still making money from this website. So basically since 2016, I haven't done any specific things on the website, but in October 2020, I got 1,400 euros from Google. In November 2020, I got 1,700 euros from Google, and it's just going and going. The reason I haven't been focusing on it is because Nicola and I started this new consultancy, Zendev, in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and we're doing website development now, but it's still just that passive income that keeps coming and coming. So the thing that you need to take away from this video is that even though my website is of course unique in its own way, the concept of a website that has a very long tail based off a database, where each and every page has good and valuable content, that's the principle that you should be taking from here. And when I figured this out, I taught that concept to my colleague today, Nicola, and he started making his own website with this in mind. And he's made over 100K himself from Google AdSense with the same concept, right? And he showed me his AdSense account recently. These last few days, he's been making over $200 every day from websites like myself that he built many years back, right? So there's something to be said for this methodology. I'll save his story for the next time in a separate video because it's very interesting in itself. Similar concept with the same outcome, so please make sure to subscribe and click on the bell so that you get notified when that video comes out. Anyway, so there are two takeaways from this entire video. So the first one is create websites with a long tail, and you can only do that by having a big database. And number two, if you don't have a database, you need to acquire one. How? Either A, by scraping content from either the internet or books like I did, or B, you need to buy a few different databases and see if they have a collective synergy in between themselves to create new value. I'll give you an idea right here how you can do that. So whoever wants to run with this idea can, it's up for grabs. Okay, so find all the street addresses for a country. I'm sure you can find this somewhere online, right? Then use Google's API to find all the restaurants, cafes, and nightclubs within a radius of 1 kilometer from that specific street address. And based off of that, create a so-called street rank. The street rank should be telling you what is the quality of life when you live on that specific address, right? Does that make sense? Then index every single address with Google. And I think you'll be surprised how often people Google addresses. And this is where you're going to be ranking with your website. Perhaps you can even sell it as a service to real estate agents or construction companies. So this is just one of many ideas that's been running in my head for some time. I just haven't got around to develop it. But always think big databases, their synergies, and the long tail. Thank you so much for sticking around for this long. If you have any questions, any comments, please write them in the comment section down below, and I promise that I'll get back to anybody that reaches out to me. Again, if this was valuable, please subscribe to my YouTube channel called Business Bits, where I basically share, 13 years in the startup space, everything I've learned, the accumulated lessons. And please follow me on LinkedIn as well. That's where I post for the most part because that's where all the business happens. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.